What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we return with Marc of the Arson Choir. Thank you so much for coming back on the show today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, buddy. I really appreciate it. I love the altar now, dude. That's dope.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you, man. I got to tell you, the greatest honor I've ever had doing interviews was interviewing Arson, and he saw this and he goes, "Wow, I think you actually out black metaled me." That was the greatest honor I've ever heard. I should have just retired from doing interviews at that point, but
Just have that as a clip on TikTok and then post nothing else.
yeah. Oh, and I see the dog in the background. Yes, photobomb.
So we got one right here.
Yep.
There she is.
Yep.
And then the other one's waiting for food next to Chris.
It's so awesome. I love it when that happens. But it's so great to have you here because because we've been getting some great new music coming from you. One of the most recent singles is "Pretend the World is Perfect and Forever," and we've been hearing tracks such as "Ravenous" and "Tower of Snakes." So, like, is this maybe a good representation in a way, of sort of like where the Arson Choir is sort of going in terms of its sound and in terms of its concept, or is this more or less kind of like still experimenting and sort of like getting, sort of testing the waters with new stuff?
So you kind of caught us in a weird place. Like, pretend the world is such a like departure of what we've been doing, and then Ravenous was written at a time kind of during lockdown, but as our longtime drummer was kind of stepping out, and then Tower was kind of the middle ground of we needed to write a cover because the label wanted us to put out something. So it was a weird, like, these three songs back to back to back have all kind of been like a hodgepodge of time within the band. And now I'm kind of learning how to write in a weird way where I'm not writing with my longtime drummer anymore. He stepped out to be full-time dad, which all respect to him. Like, no, that's my dude, and I love him forever. He wanted to go be full-time dad, so it was just wasn't in the cards for him to stay in the band anymore. Mm-hmm. So now, like, where these three songs are at, I'm hoping is the next step that we're doing, and it's more of a mature sound. Like, we still suck at writing mathcore. Like, I will say that all the time. But like, we're the worst mathcore band, but for whatever reason, like, that works. And it's like, it's just, the best thing I can say is I'm trying to write a more digestible mathcore. Like,
I thought you did that actually because the Trophy Nation EP, like a song like White Girls, for example, has that sort of melodic tendency that makes it sort of like easy to digest. I was pretty shocked, and I mean it as a compliment, with the Invisible Monsters EP, because that shit threw down freaking hard. But I did want to ask, was doing the 18 Visions cover, was that just, paying tribute to being a Southern California hardcore band in a way? Was that just the most natural one to pick? It was either that or Bleeding Through or
dude, that's actually a really good question, because that was a whole ass discussion. Oh, can I curse?
Please.
Okay, because I just finished watching the See You Space Cowboy one with Connie, and I forgot if that was okay. So myself and the vocalist Phil are massive 18 Visions fans. Like, that is the one band that we connected with. But our other guitarist Eric is very much like, I don't know if a cover is a good idea. Like, I know the label wants us to do it, but it was never really like a priority for Arson to do covers. So it was that discussion of like, are we going to do a cover? Or are we not going to do a cover? The label wants a cover, but we want to stay true to what we do. So it was the compromise. So that was first the first discussion was like, are we even doing a cover? Then when we decided, okay, we're doing a cover, that actually wasn't even the first choice. The first choice was like Thursday, oh God, what is it? Second Story, from a Second Story Window.
Okay.
So we were actually going to do a Thursday song, and Phil like absolutely killed that song. I'm not saying that's out of the question, but that was the first one we were doing. And then it turned into Norma Jean, Memphis Will Be Laid to Waste. And we were like, okay, like that's a dope song, but that's so close to what we do already. I don't know if that's enough of a departure, or we can add anything to doing it. So I started riffing around with Tower of Snakes, and I was like, all right, like there's some juice in there that I can add. Like I can definitely add some flavor, being like I know that song was written now 20 years ago. So like what would 20 years ago Marc add to that song? And that's what we did. Like we just added more horror chords, more dissonance, slightly like crazier breakdown things where Eric added this like cool ambient thing that's in the background that's not buried, but it's back there. And it's just like, it's just more layering of like, okay, so I've been a fan of that song forever. Like, how do I do my version of that? And that's kind of what we wanted to do. We just wanted to be like, let's just do something we really like, rather than just recreating it note for note, like super nerdy stuff. But you have the piano behind you. We actually tuned it up a full step. So they wrote the song in like drop B tuning, and we're traditionally in drop C. So we rewrote it in drop C, and like that's the super nerdy part of my brain that went just like, let's just keep doing something a little different, like just to add something a little different to everything that they've done. And I don't think we did, perfect. I think we did what we did. And
yeah, I think it was a fantastic cover, a great tribute. I definitely knew that it was 18 Visions you were covering, and then on top of that, just it's great to see you pay tribute to a California scene. And I wanted to talk about that too, because See You Space Cowboy, who's one of my personal favorite new bands to have come out, like this new album they're putting out and the one before are super important to me. And then like it just seems like Southern California is really just on the fucking rise again with the sort of post-hardcore, mathcore sort of style. It's almost starting to seem like Southern California is almost kind of having a rebirth in a way.
I'd love to say that that's happening. I'm hopeful that there's a rumored fest coming over here, and it's a very like mathcore centric fest. I can't really give too much more out than that right now. We're hoping to be a part of it, but you have bands like I love See You Space Cowboy. There's a resurgence with both Heavy Lolo putting out a new record, and Duck Duck Goose being active again. Like you put those three bands on any bill, and I'm at every show. Like
what about
that's just
Differences is another good band, right? I think they're from the same.
Oh, Differences is amazing. Those are our bros too. I mean, if you want to just talk about like generalized, like SoCal bands that are just doing great. I mean, Differences, Takers Leavers, Tour, Eight Cold Hells. Like, there's so many good bands coming up right now, and I've been seeing all the things where like it's not a competition. Like it's really not. I push for all my friends. If we can't take a show, like I will gladly put together whoever is coming through that needs a show. Like I will do my best to make that lineup work if I can throw out, a couple bro bands.
I want to literally have like a SoCal fest where it's like you, See You Space, Differences, like, and maybe have like Bleeding Through as like the headliner or something like that, and that would be freaking epic.
Dude, sign me up. Like, I don't even care if we play it. Like, I will go watch that. There's a great camaraderie happening that I see at stuff like LDB Fest, where all the bands are all friends. I think that's very possible to have over here. There's definitely like a good energy right now, and I know like I'm kind of like the old head in the scene right now, which is fine. But it's cool to see so many of my friends' bands like actually starting to get back on their feet after the pandemic, after what we call it like the big reset, because everybody basically started back from zero.
It's feeling I'm gonna get so much shit for saying this, but I don't care. Like now that I'm 30, I'm seeing young people who are now old enough to drink, so going to clubs like 21 and 22 year olds, and like it is absurd. Because I remember what it was like getting into a scene and just meeting people and whatnot at 22 years old. I can remember like I remember this whole journey like it was yesterday. To see people younger coming in now, it really feels so strange. I don't think that's. It makes me scared to think what another fucking 10 years is gonna be like.
Bro, I mean, if my body is still letting me do this in 5 years, like I would like to see what that scene looks like. But it's it's different because at this age, it's kind of our responsibility to make sure that the next generation is coming in, to make sure that there is more hardcore coming and available. Because I'm that guy of like, I love legacy bands. I really do like enjoy legacy bands, but the scene cannot be only legacy bands, because then you don't have anybody new being cultivated, and that new blood keeps everything moving. And I don't know.
And I got to tell you too, your dogs are doing the great job of crowd killing right now. I love this. This is like this is the perfect, like, it's like, yeah, that's right. Dogs, open up that pit.
Mm-hmm. If I let them go, they'll fight it. They'll fight on camera for you.
I wanted also, what's very important with Arson Choir too is your messaging, as we've talked about on the other 2 times I've interviewed, is that there's a lot of important messaging that's involved, and you hope to bring in to be just as informative as you are heavy and whatnot. Why do you feel like that this style of mathcore that we hear in the Arson Choir has always been the best medium and the best means of getting your point across?
That's a good question, dude, because I feel like there's such an oversaturation of just what's the best way of saying this? I think right now what's hurting my brain the most is that there's a massive oversaturation of just TikTok hooks and just making content that is supposed to last like 30 seconds. And I'm not any better. I do the same thing because I'm trying to get attention. But I would hope that somewhere in between the attention seeking, there's at least some kind of message going on, or some kind of something more than just the clickbaity, YouTube thumbnail of some dude's face going like, I don't know. I'm in that weird, like, I'm not quite old man yelling at a cloud yet, but I definitely have that, I'm getting too much inside baseball stuff where I'm like seeing through I read between the lines too much, and I definitely have like had way too many conversations of like, I see what that band is doing, and I get the gimmick, and I'm not super into the gimmick, but I respect the gimmick because I can't shit on a band that's doing better than me. I don't feel like I'm that person, but at the same time, when I can see through the gimmick, it makes it a little harder to like respect it. Like, I'm trying to think of the one that bugged me this morning. This morning there was that big thing about oh God, I can't think of her name. She just said that she was quitting music, and now she's yeah. She was like, I'm quitting music, and then she read, I'm not actually quitting music. I'm just quitting the internet, or I'm quitting negativity. I'm like,
she pulled a Slayer. She's trying to. She saw how well it worked for Slayer, and this is promoting it for her. Maybe
that's a perfect like 1-to-1 equation. That's just like, I wasn't listening to you before. I'm not going to listen to you after. But at the same time, you're getting news, and the gimmick was, if I say I quit, everybody's going to forget the last thing I've done for the past 10 months, and now they're going to pay attention to me now that I'm back again. So it's that gimmick. It's the like, this is a publicity stunt. Like, once you see once you see through what the trick is, it's hard to get back into it. It's hard to like, and I see that with bands. There's certain bands that I can see where it's like, I get what you're doing. I don't, it's not for me, but I see where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole term gimmick though is also getting a little vague at this point. Like, I'll put it to you this way: I know people who would look at this post-hardcore and mathcore thing because people see the crowd killing and they see the stage interaction, they see all the even the imagery and the messaging, and people would argue that's a gimmick. Like, take a good band I would say for an example is King 810. Okay, like they talk about very important shit. They come from Flint, Michigan, which is not a good area, and they have to talk about some very important stuff that should be addressed to the world. And I think it's great that they use art to do it. But their shows consist of a bunch of guys standing up on stage. They have like the crime scene tape on that. So it's hard for people. People just look at that and go, oh, it's a gimmick, like, in a way. You know, people, the Norwegian black metal thing, whether it was about mischief or ideology, it was very important to them. But to the outside looking in, they're seeing a bunch of people with corpse paint and blood on them trying to be edgy. So I think gimmick in itself, and I think the Lizzo thing, I knew she wasn't quitting music. I knew she was not quitting music. I looked at that headline, I was like, yeah, see you in like a couple weeks. Like I knew that was. So I feel like gimmicks at this point are almost not obsolete anymore, if that makes sense.
Well, even in that phrasing that you just said, like, even not having a gimmick is a gimmick at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I can't fault something like Sleep Token. Absolutely cool, like gimmick, absolutely cool. Their music is not for me, but I get it. Like, I get it. It's cool. But then you go back, it's always the go back and forth. Like, would they be the same band without the gimmick?
I see. I don't know, because that gimmick is not with them when you listen to the music.
There you go.
So it depends. That's why I've always said a live show and listening to something are two completely separate experiences. I love listening to the Arson Choir. It helps me. First off, it helps with my morning commute because I'm pissed off on the subway in the morning. But like it, you know, I think it's fair. But when I'm listening to it on my way to work, it gives me a different energy than, you know, if I'm listening to it at my house and I'm experiencing it, understanding what you're all saying, and then you know, then I go see you live and I'm all about the camaraderie and the intensity in that experience, which I hope to see you live soon. So it's fair to say that, like, everything that you create, you're thinking about that in mind. How is this going to translate through a pair of headphones? How is this going to translate on stage?
Well, the main thing that I've always come back to, and it's hard now getting to the point where I think the first time we talked was about Trophy Nation. And at this point, I think that record's almost 7 or 8 years old.
Yep.
And I think I told you the same thing then, was I make music that I want to listen to. If I can't listen to it, then I don't want to make it. I have to enjoy it as a listener. And if I'm not enjoying doing it as a listener, if I'm not enjoying playing it as a guitar player, I don't think anybody else is going to enjoy it. And I don't think I'm feeding into anybody's preferences. I think if I'm enjoying it, I feel like somebody else will enjoy it. I have kind of always made sure to challenge myself that way first, going like, hey, like, if this is just a tough riff just to be tough, but it's not listenable, then I need to make it better, or I need to make it more digestible. I think myself and the other guitarist Eric do a good job of like, hey dude, like, you're just masturbating. Like, you're at this point, you're just playing guitar to jerk off to yourself. Rather than like, no, like, what makes a better song? Like, let's write a song. Because I will be the first one to always admit it. There are hundreds of thousands of guitar players that are way better than me. I have no qualms in ever saying that. But I don't know how many of them can write a song. Like, you can wank all day on guitar, but can you actually write a song? And I'm not saying by any means that the Arson songs are any better than Interloper or Rings of Saturn or something like Super Tech Death. Like, I'm not by any means saying that. I'm just more like, you know, the technique can only take you so far, unless you're talking about like Animals as Leaders or something like that.
Well, so to compare is because, like, you are 100% right. You could shred like on the same level as a Randy Rhoads, but writing a song is a completely separate talent altogether. There are great players. That's why, and it took a while. I didn't really learn about this until I was doing interviews, but like, where like I would look at like a band's catalog and be like, oh, this guy wrote all the music and everybody else just played. I used to think that if you're in a band, it's because you know how to write music, and that's not necessarily true. And I think what you have is, it's not just the technical proficiency. First off, it's a memory game, because this genre of mathcore is not a very consistent genre. I don't know how you or the Callous Cowboys or any band that falls in that mathcore category, Car Bomb, could really just deliver those types of patterns and memorize all of it. But it is also a message of taking a ball of chaos and being able to kind of contain it to make a bit of composition. It really is. I almost look at a mathcore song like, I'm going to sound like a total nerd now, but like a Doc Ock Spider-Man in a way, and where like he's creating that energy, and the slightest form of chaos will pierce through that and destroy the whole thing. That's what I feel like a mathcore song is.
Dude, that's a perfect comparison. And you just even dropped another band that I'm all about, Callous Cowboys. I've been following them for a long time now, and I'm so glad that, for me, Callous Cowboys right now are pioneering where mathcore can potentially go right now. Like, I still love Dillinger Escape Plan, and I love that they're kind of doing their little comeback, and I really appreciate it. But Callous Cowboys for me are the guys that are like, no, like mathcore can go bigger and can go further, and I'm looking forward to what they do within the next couple of years. But yeah, very much like memorization, controlled chaos. All those things are important in trying to put together any kind of mathcore thought. And
they used my line from Heavy New York as part of their stage setup one time, and I didn't even realize it. They were playing live, and all of a sudden I hear my voice through the PA. Oh, so would you define mathcore like Dillinger Escape Plan? And then, like, which one of the greatest honors I've ever had, but.
Best. I love that they play into the fact that, like, I watched their they did a recording at K Pit or 4K Pit, and it was some little bar, and it's like a hallway that they're playing, and it's so tight that like they can't even fit everybody on stage. The one of the members is like shoved in the back next to the drummer, and she can barely like fit playing guitar. And it was still like the best possible show ever.
They're gonna be like the Slipknot of mathcore, I feel like.
100%.
Yep. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, for coming back on the show, and thank you for your continuing support of this channel. And most of all, though, thank you for just continuing to give us new music. I love your band, and I love the Arson Choir, and please get your freaking asses to New York. I will continue asking that.
We're trying, man, but most of all, like, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for always supporting us. It means the world to me. I always support the show. I'm so glad you're back to doing all the interviews. Like, I enjoy watching your stuff. Like, I sub to the YouTube. I actively watch the episodes.
Oh, thank you.
I think you know, out of everybody that I talk to, and I don't even talk to that many people, but out of everybody that I talk to, like, you come up with the most, like, thoughtful and great analysis for whatever garbage I put out. And it just means the world to me that, like, this little band that is nothing, crappy mathcore band in SoCal gets to be on a show with you. Like, no, I appreciate you.
Don't sell yourself short. The world needs your music, and I'm grateful that I get to be part of this journey in a way. Is there just anything else with Arson Choir? Any shows coming up, or what else we could be expecting in terms of new music?
Okay, so I'll try to keep this brief. So the plan right now is to try and be as consistent as possible with just recording and releasing music as much as possible. Arson is really looking to, like, do a full year of content, and then at the end of the year, that's the record. I think that's a good document of, like, here was 2024, here's hopefully 2025. Like, I think it's going to be smarter for us to consistently release content rather than trying to, I can't find 3 months, let alone 6 weeks, let alone whatever, to try to, like, boil down my ideas all at once. It's going to be easier just do a flow of ideas, and hopefully I can keep to that kind of schedule and just consistently release things. Shows, right now we're kind of taking a little bit of a break on shows just to get as much content out as possible. Like you said, we just released the new single. Hopefully we'll have another new single really soon. The only thing that's planned is we're Bridge City Fest in Portland in September. And then outside of that, I will do the thing that I always do with you, with anybody. Thank you. I appreciate you. To anybody that's listening, it takes $0 to like, share, subscribe, send out your favorite band to your friends, to everybody. They need to be made aware of music that isn't just in the mainstream. It costs no money to share, and that share can probably help some band fill their gas tank so they can get to your next show. That's the best thing I can ask for right now. There's not enough bands being shared that way, being shared organically, just to be made aware of.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, we are here with the Arson Choir. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Bye, buddy.